So what's up, people, and welcome to the Chapter 55 discussion of Kaiju 8 or Monster Number 8. So Chapter 55 came out a few days ago, and as always I will leave a link to this chapter that's currently being shown on the publisher's official website, Manga Plus, for free to the North American audience. So if you're interested, yeah, go take a look at it. Okay, so if you recall, Chapter 54 closed out something that I would call the first act of this series. There was many closures to the story, and many of them were quite tragic. The community was in significant disarray after the attack by the monsters. Monster number 9 was able to successfully escape. And of course, probably the most tragic incident was that JDF's greatest hero of this era, Commander Isao Shinomiya, was killed. Or at least absorbed into Monster Number 9. We don't really know the details of his demise, but the community is basically taking it as his death. And of course, Chapter 54 covered his funeral. And so the closure of Act 1 ended with a not too happy situation with the community. But it opened up the avenue for the next act, where the characters will probably get stronger to be able to take on Monster Number 9. Now, typically in such stories, especially recently in the modern mangas, this is greeted with a time skip, where the characters train off story, and then in the next chapter you already see them come back extremely strong. However, what we see in Chapter 55 indicates that Matsumoto Naoya will actually go through the writing of the story and the drama of what will happen and how these individual characters will get stronger. And for me, I find that very heartening because of the fact that as much as it has become very popular for time skips to occur in the modern manga, it is a form of lazy writing because you don't have to actually write how they got stronger. They just magically do during the time skip. However, in the case of Monster Number 8, the author will go through the story. At least Chapter 55 implies that. And you could see already in Chapter 55 that the author is building up to the next act of the series by opening up several avenues of how the story will move forward. And so Chapter 55 initially starts with the aftermath of the situation, and the town is in devastation, and they're trying to clean up and rebuild after the attack. Now, the author wrote this scene to show the sheer uneasiness and tension that is felt by the community because of the loss of the greatest JDF soldier of their time. And with that, there is this uneasy feeling that an impending doom will come along. And so this sets up the urgency to which the characters will have to level up. And with that, the story then moves to the various characters that need to level up. First of all, Kikoru Shinomiya. So if you recall, in Chapter 54, Kikoru asked Commander Narumi to train her to become stronger, and Commander Narumi accepted under the responsibility of training the daughter of his late commander. And at that time, he said that so long as Kikoru can stay up with his training, he will make sure that she becomes the second strongest soldier in the JDF. And so 55 starts out with the training. And what we find out is that Division 1 is a very powerful team, not only because their commander, Narumi, is one of the most powerful soldiers in the JDF, but that the individual members of Division 1 are also very, very strong. As you recall, Kikoru is considered a prodigy of her generation, and yet she is having difficulty sparring against the soldiers in Division 1. And of course, this brings up criticism by Narumi, questioning how she's going to become the second strongest member of the JDF if she can't even beat the members of Division 1. And with that, he gives an ultimatum that within a certain amount of time, Kikoru will have to defeat every one of the members of the JDF except him. And if she does so, he will continue to train her. But if she doesn't succeed, he will drop her. And so this sets up what you expect to see in the coming chapters of how she has to train significantly hard to somehow break the impossible, which is within that short period of time to defeat all of the members of Division 1. Now, of course, the members of Division 1 are not going to take this lying down. They're sitting there going, if you think that you're going to be able to defeat us that easily, you got another thing coming. And so this, of course, sets up the story of what we can look forward to regarding the challenge, as well as the effort by Kikoru to overcome that challenge. Now, of course, we can't set up the new act without talking about Kafka. And with Kafka, he has a different problem. And this is something that many of the readers noticed at the end of chapter 54, and one of the commenters named Gala mentioned in my past video, which was that it seemed that Kafka was having a hard time fully reverting back to human form, that there seemed to be one part of his hand that was still remaining in monster form. Now, it was a little bit hard to see and to determine if that was really true, but that turns out to be confirmed in chapter 55. Kafka is no longer able to fully transform back into human form. And this goes hand in hand with the difficulties that Kafka has been having with his transformations. If you recall, in the earlier chapters, Kafka had lost control of his monster form and attacked Commander Shinomiya. And later, he had a hard time even transforming into monster number 8. So there is something definitely going on with his transformations, and I am glad that Matsumoto Naoya is continuing on with the problem because it never really got resolved in the previous chapters. And what we find out is that as Kafka continues to use his monster form, there may be a good possibility that he'll lose control of his human form and eventually fully become a monster. And this, of course, worries Kafka because he doesn't want to lose control and become a problem to the community rather than a solution. And while he's pondering this, Commander Narumi shows up and also states that he is also worried about that same situation, that they no longer can trust Kafka to be an asset because of his instability in his transformations, that if he becomes a monster, he will become a threat to the community. But with that said, since Narumi is never a person who follows protocol, he asks Kafka to continue to use his Monster 8 form to fight with the JDF. Because Narumi understands that if the JDF doesn't have the support from Monster number 8, they may have a seriously difficult, if not impossible, time of defeating Monster number 9. And so understanding the reality, despite the risk, he asks Kafka to continue to transform into Monster number 8 to fight the monsters. And he mentions that if Kafka ever turns completely into a monster form that is uncontrollable, then Narumi will make sure to take him out. Now, considering the fact that Kafka has always had that commitment and resolve that if he ever loses control of his monster form, that he will request somebody to take him out, whether it's Leno, Kikoru, or Commander Hoshina, this situation is no different, and thus, without hesitation, Kafka accepts. So now we have two parallel training situations going on, but possibly the most interesting part of this entire chapter came in this third part of the story, which involved Vice Commander Hoshina. And what we find out is that monster number 10 was not killed. He is still alive and is placed in hibernation. And for whatever reason, Commander Hoshina has come to do something with monster number 10. And so this will be very interesting to see what happens. What is Commander Hoshina thinking? Now, the obvious three possibilities are that Commander Hoshina is evil, and he wants to release monster number 10, which is probably unlikely because that doesn't sound like Matsumoto Naoya's writing style. If this was Shueisha and Tokyo Ghoul, yeah, you could think of that as a possibility. But since Matsumoto Naoya is a lot less darker story writer, I do not think he'll go down that road. So then, what does he want to do? Well, one other possibility is he'll utilize monster number 10's powers to power himself up in whatever way, whether it's to turn him into a weapon or to receive his powers the same way Commander Narumi received monster number 1's visual powers. And this is a relatively high possibility. I could see Commander Hoshina feeling that he needs to level up physically in some ways beyond the blade skills that he already has. Now, the final possibility is that Vice Commander Hoshina will revive monster number 10 as an ally. I don't know if this is possible, and it sounds far-fetched, but well, it's happened in other stories such as the Terminator series, so maybe it'll be interesting to see if that's the road that Matsumoto Naoya will take. Of course, he may take a completely different route from any of these three obvious ones, but in any case, this is probably the most interesting twist that we have seen from this chapter. And so, I feel the author has set up the next act to be quite interesting, and it will be interesting to see how both Kikoru and Kafka will progress down and overcome their obstacles. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in chapter 56, and once it comes out, I'll bring up another video. I hope you join me at that time. But this is the chapter 55 discussion of monster number 8. Thank you very much for listening, and until the next chapter, happy manga reading, and as always, Jaya, nice day everyone.